Futures trading involves risk and is not suitable for all investors. Content provided in this segment is meant for educational purposes and is not a solicitation to buy or sell commodities.
Hi, welcome to the November 8th edition of Basis Loaded with Joe Schmit. I am Joe Schmit. This episode, as always, is produced by Paige Driscoll with the help of the entire EverAg Insights team. This is our first episode since we entered daylight savings, so currently a little bit after 3 p.m. here in Northern Illinois, and the sun is setting. We have the long winter ahead of us. What better way to celebrate than the latest from the NDPSR report? In butter, this butter number is 326.77. That represents a -3 to the CME 1-week average of 329.65. Now, -3 is an improvement in basis from recent weeks, however, still well below our expected 2-cent positive basis. CME week-to-week moved down 9. Here on the NDPSR, a little slow to respond, only losing 2 cents. What's even more interesting is we traded really good volume at that elevated level. So just short of 3.4 million pounds, only a hair under our expected 3.5 million. 6 loads changed hands at the CME last week, so not a whole lot of help on the volume front there. All in all, I'd have to say it's a win for the butter manufacturer this week. It'll be interesting as declines at the CME really pick up in the weeks to come, how the NDPSR report follows along. In cheese, starting with blocks, 177.80. That is a +2.5 to the CME 1-week average of 175.25. 2.5 is at the low end of our expected basis. 16 loads changed hands at the CME last week. Here on the NDPSR, look at that. In the blocks, higher than expected sales volume. So as the block market returns to this mid-70s level, it looks like end-user buyer appetite has returned, with the NDPSR block trading north of the 12.5 million pound level for the first time in a while. However, the manufacturer did have to give up a little bit on price. That 2.5 cent positive basis, a little bit lower than expected. So the story in the blocks, higher than expected volume, lower than expected price. In the barrels, 171.68. That's also a +2.5 to the CME 2-week average of 169.15. +2.5, well below our expected 4 to 6 cent positive basis. So disappointment there on price. However, the NDPSR barrel able to move above the 170 threshold for the first time in several weeks. So that is impressive. What's not impressive is this volume. That increase in price out of the mid-160s came at a cost. We were not even able to move 11.8 million pounds on the NDPSR. So prices moved higher. End users, it looks like, for the most part, turned their noses up at those higher levels north of 170. And we failed to clear a lot of weight at that elevated level. We traded 22 loads on the CME last week. Didn't show up here on the NDPSR. So it looks like the buyers are taking the minimum as barrels move north of that 170 threshold. Up next is whey, 35.54. That represents a -2 to the CME 1-week average of 37.45. But of course, in whey, we're always talking about prior week's NDPSR. So if you go back to that October 21st price of 31.73, the manufacturer was able to call almost a 4-cent premium over prior week's NDPSR. These sales, of course, occurred last week. So last week, the prior week was that 31.73. So that is a really nice price. 4 cents over is a big bump in price here on the NDPSR. But again, that bump in price came at a cost, because although we do show sales north of 4.5 million pounds here on the NDPSR report, that 4,678,000 is achieved with the help of 1.9 million pounds trading on the CME last week. 47 loads, call that roughly 1.9 million pounds at 37.25. So it looks like on just straight contracts, if you take the 1.9 million that we traded at the CME last week and subtract that from the 4,675,000, just a little bit under 3 million pounds on previously contracted sales. So higher price in whey, but again, it comes at a cost, and the manufacturer was able to call a nice price. But if you subtract the weight that we traded at the CME last week, really disappointing volume here in dry whey. And then lastly, non-fat, 117.57. That's a -5 to the CME 1 week average of 122.75. So a little bit of enthusiasm at the CME, -5 basis, proving that buyers in the real world were not super thrilled with those price increases. 117.57 is a -5. And even at that discounted level, the manufacturer wasn't able to clear 19 million pounds, falling well short at 18,738,000. So this is week 1 of 4 of the November pricing cycle, currently getting a November class 3 of 1710 with November class 4 all the way up at 21 even. If you carry current CME equivalents out through the entirety of the December pricing cycle, currently getting December class 3, 1640, D's class 4 with a decrease in butter coming in at 1975. We'll see what they have in store for us in the weeks to come. Until then, I'm Joe on behalf of Paige and the entire EverAg Insights team. Thanks so much. Bye.